Every human being is gifted with an extraordinary mechanism for growth, drive, and transformation. This mechanism is not vague, mystical, or reserved for the chosen few. It is biological, tangible, and profoundly accessible to each one of us. It is the system of motivations. Motivation begins as a spark deep within the neural architecture of the brain. It is fueled by dopamine, a molecule that is often misunderstood. Many believe dopamine is the reward for achieving a goal, but the truth is far more empowering. Dopamine is released in the pursuit itself. It is the signal that says, continue. You are on the right path. When you recognize this, you no longer wait for the finish line to feel alive. You become alive in the process. You must set goals that are clear, specific, and deeply meaningful. The brain does not mobilize its full power for vague desires. It demands precision and emotional resonance. When a goal connects to your sense of purpose, when it feels larger than yourself, the brain engages in a way that transforms obstacles into stepping stones. Meaning is the fuel of perseverance. Understand also the power of what you see. Vision is not merely passive, it is directive. When you look at something you want to move toward, your brain shifts into a state of readiness. Neural circuits prepare your body to act, to endure, to overcome. Visualize vividly, not just the outcome, but the struggle itself. See yourself conquering the difficult moments, and your physiology will rise to meet the challenge. The human brain is designed to respond to intermittent reward. If you reward yourself predictably, motivation will wane. But if you learn to acknowledge small wins irregularly, sometimes silently, sometimes with celebration, you create a powerful dynamic tension. You keep the brain guessing, and in doing so, you keep it hungry for growth. Your body too holds keys to motivation. You are governed by rhythms, circadian cycles of alertness, focus, and energy. Leverage these rhythms. Do your most important work when your mind is sharp. Train yourself to recognize when you are most naturally driven, and build your habits around those sacred hours. But above all, understand this. Action rewires the brain. Every time you choose to act when it would be easier to retreat, you create new neural pathways. You are not simply moving through the world, you are sculpting yourself. Motivation is not something you have or don't have, it is something you build, moment by moment, choice by choice. There will be days when the weight of the world feels too heavy. There will be mornings when the fire seems low. But if you remember that your very biology is wired for greatness, if you remember that struggle is the signal, not the sign of failure, but of transformation, you will find within yourself a reservoir of strength far greater than you imagine. You were not designed to stagnate. You were not designed to merely survive. You were created to grow, to build, to contribute, to rise. Motivation is not a mystery. It is a science. And when you understand and honor that science, you unlock not just your potential, but your destiny. Motivation is often spoken about as if it were an abstract concept, something fleeting or mysterious. But at its core, motivation is a biological system, deeply rooted in the structure and chemistry of the human brain. It is not a random force. It is organized, predictable, and heavily influenced by specific neural circuits, particularly those governed by dopamine, the molecule associated with drive, anticipation, and pursuit. Motivation arises from the interaction between different brain regions like the ventral tegmental area, nucleus accumbens, and prefrontal cortex. These regions work together to evaluate goals, assign value to tasks, and initiate action. Dopamine is not released when we achieve a goal, it is released as we pursue it. This means the mere act of striving, of moving towards something meaningful, ignites the chemical pathways that keep us engaged. The beauty of this system is that it can be consciously influenced. We are not at the mercy of external rewards. Instead, we can learn to activate this system by setting clear intentions, framing challenges in a positive light, and celebrating small wins along the journey. The brain's motivational circuits are sensitive to novelty, challenge, and the perception of progress. When we understand that motivation is dynamic and fluid, driven by the interaction between our goals, emotions, and physical states, we can start to take control of it rather than waiting passively for inspiration to strike. Motivation is also deeply connected to our internal state. Factors such as sleep, nutrition, and stress profoundly impact our brain's ability to maintain drive. A fatigued or dysregulated body struggles to support the mental processes necessary for sustained effort. When you align your biology with your ambitions, treating your body and mind as a unified system, motivation becomes less a matter of willpower and more a natural, powerful expression of your design. Dopamine is often misunderstood as simply the molecule of pleasure, but its true role in the human brain is far more profound. It is the currency of motivation, driving us to pursue goals, overcome obstacles, and persist through challenge. Dopamine does not spike only when we achieve something. It rises during the pursuit, during the effort itself. This means that the greatest power we have to stay motivated lies in learning to associate the feeling of progress, not just the outcome, with internal reward. When we consciously recognize and appreciate small steps forward, even when the final goal is distant, we tap directly into the dopamine system and sustain our own drive. The brain releases more dopamine when it perceives that an action is meaningful or novel. If every task feels monotonous or disconnected from a greater purpose, motivation quickly fades. But if we consciously reframe the work, finding the value in growth, challenge, and improvement, dopamine levels remain elevated and persistence becomes easier. Small wins matter profoundly. When we celebrate effort, when we mentally note the courage it takes to push through difficulty, we reinforce the very circuits that make future action more likely. There is a balance, however. If we rely solely on external rewards, money, praise, status, the dopamine system becomes dependent on those outcomes and motivation withers when they are absent. The strongest, most resilient motivation is fueled internally, where the pursuit itself feels rewarding. Strategic breaks, novelty in learning, and setting intermediate goals can maintain the dopamine system's engagement without exhausting it. Learning to harness dopamine intentionally is not about chasing fleeting pleasure. It is about building a stable, self-renewing source of energy and drive that fuels action even in the face of uncertainty or difficulty, allowing the process of striving to become deeply satisfying on its own terms. The human brain is designed to act on clarity. When goals are vague or abstract, the motivational systems in the brain struggle to engage fully. Ambiguous intentions leave the mind in a state of indecision, while specific, well-defined goals ignite focused energy and mobilize both cognitive and physical resources. A goal that is clear allows the brain to map a path forward. It creates a sense of direction, a target to move toward, and this very act of orientation activates neural circuits that drive persistence and resilience. But clarity alone is not enough. For a goal to truly inspire sustained motivation, it must carry meaning. It must resonate with something deeper than surface-level desires. Meaningful goals are those that tap into our values, our sense of purpose, our vision for who we are becoming. When a goal connects emotionally, it engages not just rational thought, but the full emotional architecture of the brain, recruiting both the limbic system and higher-order cognitive processes. This integration produces a powerful alignment where thought, feeling, and action move cohesively in one direction. Without this emotional anchor, goals can quickly feel hollow, and motivation fades under the slightest pressure. Crafting a meaningful goal requires honesty. It demands that we ask ourselves not only what we want, but why we want it. It asks us to strip away the expectations of others and touch the core of our own aspirations. When the why behind a goal is strong, the how becomes a matter of strategy, persistence, and adaptation. Obstacles are reframed not as threats, but as necessary parts of the journey. The brain, when fueled by clarity and purpose, transforms difficulty into opportunity and uses each small victory as evidence to push even further along the path of growth. Vision is one of the most powerful tools for driving internal states of motivation and readiness. The human brain is heavily wired around visual input, and what we see or imagine seeing has the ability to profoundly influence our physiology and behavior. When we focus our eyes on a specific point in our environment, neural circuits associated with focus, alertness, and action become activated. Similarly, when we vividly imagine a goal, when we mentally visualize not just the end result, but the process of striving toward it, the brain responds as if part of that reality is already underway. Visualization is not merely positive thinking. It is a biological rehearsal. It engages the motor circuits, emotional centers, and reward pathways, creating a mental blueprint that the body and mind are more likely to follow. Effective visualization involves detail and emotion. It requires seeing not just the success, but The struggle, the moments of fatigue, the decisions to persist, the feeling of pushing through resistance. When we visualize challenges and see ourselves overcoming them, the brain lays down patterns that make real-world action more fluid and automatic. It reduces the psychological friction associated with hard work and uncertainty because a part of the brain has already experienced success through the imagined effort. Physical vision also matters in moments of fatigue or lack of motivation. Shifting the gaze forward and maintaining a broad, panoramic view can reduce stress and help maintain cognitive control. Conversely, narrowing the visual field onto a target can increase focus and readiness for action. These are not abstract techniques. They are grounded in the way the autonomic nervous system interacts with our visual system to shape our internal state. Mastering vision and visualization allows us to consciously steer our energy, attention, and motivation toward what truly matters. The way rewards are delivered plays a critical role in sustaining motivation over the long term. The brain's reward circuitry, particularly the dopamine system, is highly sensitive not just to rewards themselves, but to the pattern in which they are experienced. When rewards are predictable and constant, the system begins to adapt, and the motivational response diminishes. Motivation thrives when rewards are delivered intermittently, where successes and positive feedback occur at irregular intervals. This taps into ancient mechanisms designed to keep organisms engaged in pursuit even when outcomes are uncertain. Typically, most people experience a natural rise in alertness about 30 to 60 minutes after waking, followed by another surge in the late afternoon. These windows are ideal for deep work, creative problem solving, and goal-directed efforts. Trying to force peak performance during biological troughs, such as mid-morning or early afternoon dips, often leads to frustration and diminished motivation. Recognizing when the body is naturally prepared for focus and intensity allows for smarter planning and more sustainable effort over time. Light exposure early in the day is one of the most powerful tools to anchor circadian rhythms and prime the brain for motivation. Natural sunlight triggers cascades of hormonal signals that boost cortisol in healthy amounts, elevating alertness and preparing the mind for action. Movement, hydration, and deliberate breathing techniques can further tune physiological states to match the demands of the day. Sleep, nutrition, and stress regulation are not just background factors, they are the foundation upon which motivation rests. When physiology and ambition are aligned, action feels smoother, more coherent, and less like a battle against internal resistance. It is not about working harder at all times. It is about working with the natural forces already operating within you, amplifying your efforts through biological precision. The human brain is not a static organ. It is a living, dynamic system capable of rewiring itself throughout life. This process, known as neuroplasticity, is the foundation for learning, growth, and lasting change. However, neuroplasticity is not triggered by mere intention or passive reflection. It is activated most powerfully through deliberate action, especially when that action is taken under conditions of challenge or uncertainty. Every time we choose to engage, especially when it feels difficult, we send a strong signal to the brain that this behavior is important. In response, the brain begins to rewire its circuits to make that action easier and more natural in the future. Self-directed neuroplasticity means that we are not merely shaped by our experiences, but we can actively shape the structure and function of our own brains through the choices we make. Taking action creates the feedback loops necessary for strengthening neural pathways associated with motivation, focus, and resilience. Even small, consistent efforts compound over time, leading to profound internal transformation. The more often we lean into discomfort, the more we train our nervous system to interpret challenge not as a threat, but as a catalyst for growth. Crucially, the quality of attention during action matters. When we are fully present, deeply engaged with what we are doing, plasticity is heightened. The brain encodes experiences with greater intensity and specificity, making new behaviors stick more effectively. Rest and reflection following intense bouts of effort are also essential, as they allow the brain to consolidate these changes and prepare for even greater challenges ahead. Motivation then becomes less a matter of waiting for the right feeling and more a result of engineering the brain to desire and expect progress. Through conscious, repeated action, we carve the pathways of the person we are becoming. Remember, motivation is not a fleeting force, nor is it something that arrives by chance. It is a system, biological, psychological, and neurochemical, that can be harnessed, shaped, and directed with intention. You have within you the power to activate your drive, to engage your mind and body in ways that not only move you toward your goals, but also rewire your brain for future success. Every challenge you face, every moment you choose to take action is an opportunity to sculpt yourself, to create a new pathway of strength, perseverance, and motivation. The key lies in understanding that motivation is not a gift that you are given. It is a muscle that you build through clear goals, vision, effort, and strategic reinforcement. Align yourself with the rhythms of your biology, fuel your efforts with purpose, and take action consistently, even when it feels hard. Over time, you will find that motivation is not something you must summon, but something you cultivate naturally within yourself. So embrace the science of motivation, trust in the systems that are already within you, and take control of your journey. Each step, no matter how small, adds to the foundation of a life driven by purpose, passion, and unwavering commitment. Your future self is waiting, shaped by the actions you take today.